Welcome back to the second session for the 3 days. Um, so what is being suggested is, although everything is a story, there is no ending or no beginning. Seemingly, the end of hope is unconditional freedom. The apparent end of seeking is the seeing that there's nothing to seek. Seeking happens or it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. The end of doing is that radiant aliveness of what is, and what is always present. When a circular path is seen as motivated by dangling imaginary carrot, the spell is broken. When the apparent end of spiritual delusion is the beginning of clarity that nothing was ever needed. When the external and the internal dissolves, there's no more location, there's no more path, there's no inwards or outward. When the delusion of others wears thin, the innocent seemingly appears as others. There's no more engagement in conflicts and more compassion if needed. Again, all of these are just stories. When the apparent contraction and openness are seen as temporary appearances, so what? When duality and non-duality are seen as not two, then nothing really matters. When there is no subjective reality, then what is perceived as reality ceases to exist. There's simply no one that wants freedom, because freedom is what already is. When there is just unconditional love, then it's seen that everything is just loving itself unconditionally. When simply there's simply not two, there's wholeness. So what's being expressed is the obviousness that everything is a story. There's a beginning and there's an ending. But endings and beginnings are just like fairy tales. There's no happily ever after. The happily ever after is a fiction. Writing these children's stories is seeing that there's seemingly, it's almost kind of like, I think Kathy was talking about that there is this setup that when there's a beginning, there should be an ending that should end in a happily ever after. But when it's seen that there's death everywhere, that death is not a destination, but what is, then aliveness is seen. Aliveness and everything. Seemingly when there's a death of the character, aliveness happens. When there's seemingly no more holding on, then letting go happens. Although again, these are just stories and just suggestions that when there is a seeming glitch in the circular cycle of wanting and desiring, there seems to be a way out. But the way out is seeing that there's no way out or in. Everything is just this delusion. Seemingly there's a hallucination that everything is separate. Seemingly there's intoxication of the dancing. And it sees or passes what is just really still. So it's looking for stillness, but everything is already still. It's looking for peace, but everything is already at peace. It's looking for love, but it's looking in conditions. What's looking for is itself. It's looking for the absence of itself because there's no such thing as a self. The self, the no self are just ideas coming from a self, but the idea is just regurgitating ideas about itself to maintain itself. So no matter what ideas come or no matter what delusions appear, there's always stillness, there's always clarity, and the clarity is this. The clarity is always heard, but cannot be understood. The stillness is always seen, but seems to be unseen. Blindness always happens, but there's always clarity. There's usually a blindness in hope, a blindness in faith, a blindness in belief, a blindness in truth, a blindness in the happily ever after. So all of these ideas are just circling around like vultures of the dead. It's already dead. All of these ideas are dead. It's already at peace. So when nothing really matters, life seems to happen, although there's no such thing as life. It's just a word for what seems to be happening. And life seemingly continues and continues without an ending, because ending and continuing are just ideas of something that is just completely still. So in the stillness of the night, even at the foggiest mist, did I say that right? Even in the midst of the thick mist, there's clarity. That in the stillness, there is this peace that does not need understanding, that does not need any attainment, because peace exists in everything. But when peace becomes an understanding, when peace becomes a condition, when peace becomes a maintenance, what's apparent seemingly is lost. That all that there is this unconditional freedom appearing as whatever it is, whatever it might be. But sometimes when there is this attainment of freedom, it's just an attainment of story. It has an ending and a beginning, and it's usually not a happily ever after. So if there are questions about the happily ever after, oh, there's a question here actually. My dog died a year ago today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm having trouble getting past the idea that I lost something. Can you address that? Um, I lost my dog back in May actually, and it was quite devastating. The loss, the absence of something or someone that is really dear is just what is. It's what is appearing as death. And even the grieving is what is appearing as grieving. But there's nothing really to grieve. And I know it's hard to hear that, especially if there is this, especially a baby dog. My baby dog, which is the apparent love of my life, San Miguel, passed away. And there was just this flow of grief. It was just a deep, deep, deep grief. But that's a part of what is. It's not an avoidance. And then even if it's seen, even the getting past the idea that there was something lost is what is. Getting the past idea that you lost what is, but what is can never be lost. The ideas of what is can be lost, but what is always permanent. So let's just say it, there's really no death. And death is an illusion. But in this appearance of reality, there might be a realistic loss of a dog, especially a loved one. I have a little little kind of like place where I put San Miguel, and every time that I see it, there's still sadness, but there's also sweetness in it. There's nothing wrong or right about getting past the idea that something was lost, because that's a part of what is. That is also what is happening. That's also emptiness appearing as a loss. But emptiness cannot be lost, and everything is emptiness. So emptiness is just seen as empty. It's what is. If you want to add to that, please go ahead.
Thank you, Emerson.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for sharing that.
Something you said helped a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think how I felt was like I lost what is.
Yeah.
And you can't lose what is. It's still
You can't
here.
lose what is. It's still here. It's still here. It's forever here. It's not just here. What is also loss. What is death. What is absence. What is everything. So it appears in everything. So what is appears as the dog that died a year ago today. What is appears as a year ago today. But everything is appearing. What is appearing always as this. So it's like what is licking your ear, saying that it's here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that made me sad too. My little doggy. So sadness happens, right? Sadness happens. And everything is allowed. It's not about, and this is just a story as well. When you say when there is a lot of grief over something that is really loved, then it's the depth of the love. It's the same as the depth of the love. Emerson, how is your mom? Oh, thank you for asking. During the break, I just gave her a massage and made her laugh. And she said, I'm so, I thank God that there's an Emerson, but she doesn't know that there's no Emerson. It's okay. Give her a massage, and some of the language from my childhood, from her dialect makes me laugh a lot because I can't really speak it properly now. So I just repeat what she says. And I know when my mom is in pain because the rosary is in her hand, there's a candle burning, there's usually a church, a uh, a church TV going on. But that's what is as well. That's what is as well. So I'm not going to say, you know what, don't watch that. It's just a dream. So in the dream, there was laughter that happened despite her falling. And I'm going to massage her again after. Yeah. So yeah, she's good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Hi, Emerson. I love when you said circular path. Can you um, express that more? Sure. Seemingly in the story, there's a path, usually of seeking and then following, right? But seemingly what is seemingly followed is just basically a dangling carrot. And it just goes in a circular way. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you lose it. Um, and it's just a circular path. No one achieves anything because there's no one to achieve anything. No one receives permanence because there's nothing permanent. It's an illusion. So it's like a merry-go-round, goes up and down, up and down. It's like following, it's like chasing its own tail. You will never get there. Hi, Emerson. Can you bring your dog? No, my dog actually, my dog is with my brother right now. So I can have a meeting because usually my dog attacks the lights. The lights usually fall down and people see that I'm really old. Um, oh, question. There's a question here. Sorry. Can you talk about the contentment that you talked about before? Yeah, it's just a quiet contentment. There's no more care for name or fame or anything really. It's just contentment. There's no maintenance of name. There's no maintenance of fame. There's just contentment. Whatever it is just content. Um, no matter what seems to appear, there's just contentment. It is what it is. So there's seemingly an easygoing character rather than the character that used to be really controlling, wanted to, create an image, maintain an image, um, used to defend an image. There's no more image. There's no more fame. There's no more name. And there's just a contentment, a quiet contentment. Kind of like the story that I was telling, that no matter where this is, I was in Vancouver a few weeks ago. I love Vancouver, but I also love where I am right now. It's not the same, but it is the same. It's just the perception is not the same. So when it's seen that um, There's oceans there, but I am in love with the trees lately. I don't know if you guys live in the east. The changing colors, the sunsets and the fall sunsets and the morning sunrise in the fall weather. It's just wow. Yeah. So there's just contentment. Hi, Emerson. I love your meetings. I wonder why you're not as popular as other speakers. um, there's contentment. There's no need to promote or anything like that. There's just contentment in what is. Um, and it's kind of funny, when there is usually when there's speakers or teachers, that's speaking about this, the most seemingly kind of like radical or the one that's hated, or when it doesn't give anyone anything, when it doesn't give anyone practices, it's not as popular. Because if I really wanted to be popular, then I'll be giving out practices and holding everyone hostage that I have something that you don't. So there's just there's this brutal kind of like sincerity here that nothing will be given. And no one wants to hear that. People usually come seeking and they want something to get. So when it's being expressed that there's nothing to get, that everything already is what it is, it doesn't really attract like hundreds and thousands of viewers, or it could be for someone that has been seeking for a long time. When they hear that there's nothing to get, it is quite grating. It's quite how do you say it? It's not good for a lot of people because it doesn't give anything, that there's nothing to grasp. Usually what people want is something that they can practice, something that they can attain, um, something that they can but that's the maintenance of the character. That's the maintenance of and that's what is the sufferer, is that there is something to get. And when there is not, when it keeps on being expressed that there's nothing to get, usually people that want to attain something or want a mysticism or some miracle or some magic or happily ever after, as I mentioned, when it's brutally expressed that there's nothing to get and everything is already as it is, it doesn't want to hear that. So it usually dislikes the channel, leaves a nasty message, and usually kind of like because it doesn't want to hear that this is already it, because it wants something other than this it. It has an imaginary it, and usually goes to a teacher that promises something, kind of like the people want the dangling carrot. That's why it's always offered. It likes to go in a circular path. It likes to ride. It likes to be deluded. It likes to maintain the dream. No one really wants this communication, because this communication not only says that there's nothing to get, everything what's being illuminated is this is already it. And it's perfectly this already. It goes into shutdown mode and says that, you know what, that speaker's not speaking the truth. There must be a better truth than that. So it goes into concepts. It wants to be fed concepts. It wants to be fed ideas. It wants to be fed hope. It wants to be fed promises, right? But usually that becomes abusive, because when someone usually has the power, when someone proclaims that they have something that they can give you, then that's just it's just a ripe, what do you call that? Relationship, codependency. There's codependency, there's gaslighting, all that kind of stuff. Here is just being expressed what it is. Take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. Someone said, geez, I was waiting for something here. Sorry. Lauren. Hey, Lauren. That's funny.
Hi, Emerson.
Hi.
Yeah, I think, it wants something it can work on. Which...
Yeah. It wants something it can chew on. It wants something that it can practice. It wants something that it wants the happily ever after. It wants the fairy tale, right? It's the pretty woman. Remember the movie? He wants the fairy tale.
You know what is so weird? I actually remember apparently being a kid and asking one of my parents, like, if that's the end of the story that you just read me, then like what happens when my story ends?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about the issue of conditioning, but it did raise the question mark as to like, why are we reading children these stories and giving them a story, you know?
Oh yeah, totally, right? So when I was writing my book, writing the children's book that I'm collaborating with an illustrator, you know, just this spark of kind of like, because I was writing all of these stories, but it was a cautionary tale that there's no happily ever after. It reminded me of I'm like, is this the same as the Grimm's brothers fairy tale books? So there's a first edition of an oral tale, Germanic oral tale of stories that were just really blunt, but it got edited and edited and edited and edited and edited so that it has a happy ending. So that it has moral of the story. So it's not as scary. So it's not as brutal. It's not gory, you know, because there's death and murder in some of the stories. But the stories actually are meant to be told for adults about kids suffering. Somehow it got Disneyfied, and it became about the triumph over good over evil. So there's a separation. So again, in this story, in this dreamland, there's always going to be a repetition of the story, maintaining the story. So it's maintaining separation. There's going to be an evil and a good. I have to be this way to have a happily ever after. So it's reinforcing that story of separation. Every story reinforces the story of separation.
Earlier when you were talking in the morning, you talked about the mind, or not the mind, but that I was able to, I guess, see that, the same way that a bird flying by is just happening, so is whatever is arising in the perceived mental world, that it's not actually like me in there. It's just the same as something that's happening.
Yeah, everything is just happening by itself. So picture this. There's a stillness that is moving dynamically. There's a dancing stillness, so to speak. And then without any words, it's just this dynamic stillness. And that's even saying way too much, right? So if you look around, there's trees treeing, there's the wind blowing, there's the sand, the soil, the ceiling. These are just labels of stillness. So all of this is stillness, and every movement, like thinking, flying, walking, is just another label for the dream. So stillness is dreaming of self itself as movement.
Yeah.
So this is the stillness moving in a dream of separation, because for movement to happen, there has to be separation. But there's labeling on what this separation is. So it gets, again, a story just creates a story after a story. Even the story that's being said is creating division, because nothing really needs to be said. If nothing is said, then it's just this stillness,
right,
that seems to be moving. Yeah.
And last night, then it became clear, the conversation last night around like the moment that you then it's two. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a layers, this is just a story again, right? There's a layers and layers of labeling. So every word would seemingly have, a collection of letters. Every word would have seemingly a phonetic, sound. Every word would have an etymology, would have a history.
Right.
But since there's no time, there's no sound, it's just really, what are words then?
I don't know.
Like
Just
chirping, like the wind blowing, the trees swaying. It's actually silence.
ricochets.
Because if you take away the word silence and sound, they're the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we take away the letters in the alphabet, what are words?
Just a lot of hot air.
Yes. So there's a transparency. What's seen here, there's a transparency in everything, meaning that every word is nothing.
Yeah.
So there's no truth. There's no one. There's nothing. Nothing happening. Right. And even that's what saying too much, just seeing that, okay, well, if words are just meaningless, why do we put meaning in it? So the meaning is an illusion, because meaning is just a word. True is just a word. False is just a word. You
Right.
is just a word. I is just a word. It's just a collection of letters with sounds.
But it does seem to have like a directional vector of energy in the body.
And that's just another word for the word. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
it's just words for words, words about words about words. But if you look at it, it's just layers and layers of emptiness.
That's why it's actually chaos.
Yes.
And it's not
This is
actually,
anarchy.
yeah.
This is anarchy. If you really look at it, this is anarchy, right? It
Mhm.
appears like order, but it's really anarchy. If you look outside, it's anarchy.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
anarchy is also peace, because anarchy is just a word and peace is just a word.
Right. And so then apparently I run up this hill at the break, and at the top, I get this story that I still have so much heaviness, and it's because of like interacting with this other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's just what's happening. That's just,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does, there's nothing to be said, there's nothing to be done, there's nothing. Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, let's simplify this. It's almost like we're deluded with our own words,
Yeah.
right? Because others is a word, you know what I'm saying? And it's just really, if you really look at it, everything is just whole, but we have seemingly used words to separate them. And there's really no others, because what you're looking at is just a blank page. What you're looking at is just a formless form. It's a form. It's just kind of like if you see a land, there's going to be mountains and hills and volcanoes, but they're land. They're one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think I talked about this, kind of like this. Sorry, I'm writing a lot of kid stories. It's like this giant octopus with 7.5 tentacles.
7.5 billion.
Billion tentacles. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally.
But there's no source. You know what I'm saying? There's just tentacles that are really advanced that they think that they're separate, but really they're just tentacles. But again, there's not even an octopus. The octopus is imaginary. It's an imaginary octopus with 7.5 billion tentacles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so simple. It's so simple. That's why, that's why I like using the kids' stories, because when you take away all the seriousness of it, like I have this story about, I think I already mentioned a sloth that wanted to be a tiger. And the tiger basically said, well, sloth, you know what? I'm just an illustration. And so are you.
Mhm.
This is just an illustration. This is just a story. These are just words. Words are what's keeping this apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just singularity that's actually not even one. It's nothing. It's nothing appearing as one.
Yeah.
And the one, is deluded that it's other, multiplicity or single. It's so simple that it's often missed, right?
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still the slightest sense that there's something that's going to happen, but
It already happened,
yeah,
but not to you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already whole. It's looking for its wholeness. The words are the one that's just basically denying it. It's just words. It's going to happen. It's just word. Without the word, it is this. It's already, it is what is. But when we put words into what is, then it becomes it's going to happen. When will it happen? It happened to you. These are just words. Again, words are empty. So if all words are transparently empty, it's just basically masks of what is. Then every single word is what is. Every single expression is what is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Someone
you.
just someone just wrote down that my head is going to explode. There's no head. Kathy.
Yeah, hi. I'm going to ask for a word.
Sure.
So there's whatever 7.5 billion tentacles.
Yes.
What's the big blob that they're attached to called?
Again, it's imaginary. See, there's this idea that it's a source, but there's no source. It's just imaginary. It's just a singularity appearing as 7.5 billion, but the singularity is also illusory.
Okay. I got to go with that because I don't know what else. Singularity.
Singularity, that's a zero, actually. It's 0 and 1.
Why is it? I get zero. Why is it 0 and 1? That's duality.
It's not 0, it's not 1. It's neither. So 0 and 1 cancels each other out, meaning it's unknowable.
0 and 1 cancel each other out?
It's just nothing. Nothing. It's not 1, it's not 0. It's nothing. It's unknown.
Okay. Someone
explains that better than I do, I think, but it's just nothing, basically.
I can't get it at all. Not at all. Zero. Yeah, well, was never good in math, so I don't know what zero, how they can't.
Likewise, actually, likewise.
What? What?
Yeah.
What?
Likewise, I'm not good at math.
Oh. How could you not be good at math when you do all this? That's bullshit. I don't know. Maybe you'll explain it later or something.
Yeah. It's just so what seems to be seen as a whole is also not a singular. It's not two. So there's no opposites to it. So it's unknowable.
It's not two.
Yeah, it's not two. It's undivisible. It's whole.
Well, you know how Tony says beloved?
Yes.
That's it too, huh? Is
That's
that the
it too,
word
yeah.
for it? That's a
That's
word
it.
for it.
That's just another word.
Any word they want, right?
I can call it peanut butter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a word. Again, words are transparent. So words is what is appearing as words, right? It's just kind of like, when you hear someone said it's just this energetic openness. That's what it is. It's just this expression is energetic openness that there's nothing needed. There's nothing that needs to be known. And then that there's no knower. It's just this openness. It's not a story that has a beginning and end. It's a never-ending story.
Wasn't that a kid's movie? The Never Ending
It is,
Story?
it is, it is. I think I talked about it in one of my talks. The
Yeah.
never ending stuff. I love the soundtrack.
You do?
Mhm.
I forget it. I don't remember it, but I'll look it up again.
It's an 80s movie,
I'll look that up again. I remember the
kids
name.
movie.
It's like the planet goes on, right? Something like
I
that.
can't remember what it is, but I watched it recently, and it's about everything is becoming nothing, so they're trying to save the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this flying dog, and princess and all that kind of stuff. It's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. Yeah,
Right up my alley.
yeah.
Fairy tales and princesses.
Fairy tales. Yeah.
I love fairy tales. Anyway, I can't wait to hear the rest of them.
Okay.
Seriously, I do.
All right.
Thanks.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's
Well, I'm certainly not going to watch Jeffrey Dahmer. That's
no,
for
no,
sure.
it's not a Jeffrey Dahmer.
That shit on. Okay, I'm going to unmute myself so I don't make a big
No
mistake.
worries. Hi, Emerson. I think I got it. So teachings have a certain know-it-all quality to it. And then this expression has a know nothing at all. Something like that, yeah. Yeah, there's really nothing known. It's unknowable. So it's closer to quantum physics, closer to quantum mechanics, that it's unknowable. And yet there's a knowing or trying to know it. And that's also what is. So stopping seeking is stopping buying into the illusion that there's another this, but no one's doing it. Yes. So there's no one stopping the seeking, but there's this illusion that there's always this apparent another this. So there's this illusion that maintains the illusion that seemingly obscures what is by presenting another this. So it could be something better than this, or this is something worse than this, something that, avoiding this. But in this directness, in what is seemingly appearing, although it seems completely real, is just what is also not real. So the unreal, real seems to appear simultaneously, although no one knows that. But when the mask is off, seemingly, everything that feels real is just another idea, it's just another illusion. Everything that seemingly feels absolute is just another idea. everything, all the words crumbles into nothing. Pure, absolute truth. In deep sleep, does that mean anything at all? And they're just words. They're just masks of emptiness. They're just labels of emptiness. They're just energetic expressions of emptiness. That doesn't really mean anything. So when there's usually a holding on to, that's why I change all the words all the time, because it doesn't really matter. It could be marshmallow, peanut butter, hot chocolate, cinnamon roll, whatever. It's just words, right? So when there is this and there's also an avoidance of words that seemingly is very held onto on a high pedestal, like the word God, pure, truth, because it implies that someone knows it, that someone's got it when there's no one here. It implies separation. It's a very separate suggestion. So when words like emptiness, blank, zero, tentacles are just used, they're just being used just for no apparent reason. It's somehow it's clear. Somehow that there's nothing that needs to be, it doesn't require a belief system. But when a belief system appears that this is whatever, it misses it as well. So what is being expressed here is something that's unmissable. It doesn't really appear in, it's not really, cannot really be captured in word, because it appears in everything. It appears in every single letter. It appears in every thought. It appears in every delusion. Simply, it appears as everything. Every blinking of the eye, every sound, the dogs barking, the trees, everything seen, heard, missed, not missed, is it. Simple. If no one is doing it, who is doing it? No one. No one's doing any of this. Is emptiness doing itself? Before there's any idea what emptiness is not a thing. It's not a being. It's not any understanding. It's not any knowing. It's not a thing at all. Right? So it's this, think of a mystery that cannot be solved. But that's even going too far. The mystery that appears in everything that's known. So everything known is a mystery. Everything that is perceived is a mystery. But there's no undoing the mystery, because that implies duality. Thank you. Hi, Emerson. Can you talk about what you thought of enlightenment prior to enlightenment and what you think about it now? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, I think I know what you're saying. When I was seeking, I thought that enlightenment was something that was a final attainment, was like the ultimate attainment. So when there was this apparent attainment, um, which is basically attainment that there's nothing to attain, there was just this clarity that it's like a relief. But seemingly in the story, when nothing was attained, it becomes a story of attainment right away. It's so fast, saying that the apparent maintenance of the story, it becomes that, oh, well, nothing happened, but it happened to me, and this becomes an attainment, meaning that when it's seen that it's already this, and it cannot really be told into a story, then it becomes a narrative and it becomes a maintenance. It becomes something. So that happened 10 or 15 years ago. I don't really know. People always ask this question. So when it's seen that everything is a dream, even the dream, even the attainment of enlightenment is a dream. And there's really no one enlightened because it's a dream. So it's all dream characters. So there's no hierarchy in dream characters when it's all nothing. There's no better nothing and lesser nothing. So it's all nothing. It's seen as a silly play. But I was in it before. So when it's seen that there's characters, trying to do that, it's just seen as a play. Yeah, there's nothing wrong or right about it. It was one of the hardest thing to hear when you think that you got it and you lost it, and then you hear that what you think that you got and lost doesn't even exist, or it's just a dream. Again, when the hope end, it was the end of hope seemingly, and it was like it's a liberation like no other, actually, because that expectation. So what seems to appear almost seems disappointing, but it's actually sincere, and it's just not fantastical anymore, because there was this imagined idea of what would happen if there was a loss or an enlightenment or a permanent bliss or something like that. So when it happened, it's just seen as a story, and it just becomes irrelevant, because everything is just this. So there's no higher this and lower this. There's no inner this and outer this. It's all this. So it's kind of like the sobriety from that intoxicating fantasy of a happily ever after. And seemingly, what seems to be called a suffering or pain or whatever is also seen as non-existent. I'm not sure if I answered that. Beyond the dream. Some says beyond the dream, there are souls at work. That's also, beyond the dream is also a dream. Because anything that is in the dream is always the dream. That's nice though. Nice dream. Oh, from trance channeling. Okay. There are no yeah, I was curious about that before. I think I was laughing with someone about that, about channeling. It is what it is. I used to believe in 5D dimensions, all that kind of stuff, the great awakening. Um until you hear horror stories about cults and stuff like that. Hi, Emerson. I still can't find the self. What happened? Nothing. There was no self. There was no self in the first place. Hooray! It's just a figment of imagination again, right? If you, I think I was talking to someone earlier yesterday about this, that um, you can go under MRI or microscope and the self will never be found. It's non-existent. So hooray! I've been staring at the window for hours and I still can't find it. When you find it, let me know. You'll never find it. Hi, Emerson. Although I can't find the self, there seems to be peace here. Sorry for the panic attack yesterday. There's more of an acceptance now that there's never been a self. Thank you. Yeah, there's a sometimes, you know what, it's funny when it tries to look at itself, tries to find itself, when it sees that the seeking is always leads back into not seeing anything. Um it it sometimes there's this relief that there was no self in the first place. Sometimes there's grief that, what was thought was real is actually not appearing. Or there can be some panic attacks, like, apparently yesterday we're talking, and it was it, it's a scary, it's just it seems to be scary that what was really believed that's running the show is really not. There's like a phantom um, that seemingly is a belief system. So when it's seen that the self does not exist, all of the belief system, all of the idea, that all that held on to idea, that heaviness of the persistent that what is real is held onto that imaginary self that seems to contain all of these ideas as a truth, as an absolute, as a certainty. So when that certainty is challenged, when that certainty is revealed as nothing is certain, that nothing is really happening, then there seems to be an easiness or a freaking out, kind of like, what's going on? Was I think what you said yesterday was I hypnotized to think that I'm nothing? There's no one that hypnotized anyone. There's just this kind of like a seeming glimpse that nothing is doing anything. And sometimes that glimpse, meaning that the illusory self is seen as not there. Usually there is a sense of relaxation, but sometimes there seems to be a sense of panic because it becomes kind of like, that there's no anchor in this ship, and the ship is sailing completely and it's free. And sometimes there is this perception that it might be out of control now. What if, there's no self, then there's no one doing anything, then there's no control, there's no choice, there's no free will. So all of that comes into play, thinking that there is something that was anchoring all of that. There was a source, there was reality. So when reality is ripped apart, because reality is firmly believed by the apparent imaginary self, when it's seen that does not even exist, then it becomes kind of like a little bit of a relief, and sometimes it's a panic. But let's do call me again later if you like, during the hour break, if you want to talk more about it. Um or not. But yeah, kind of like what you said, it's peaceful. So thoughts might appear, but there's no thinker. So there are really no thoughts. Thank you, Emerson. I walked before the sunrise today, and it was the best walk ever. Still no self, but it's okay. Hi, Emerson, it's me again. Sorry, the reason that I was in a panic attack yesterday is because when I saw that there's no self, it also meant that there's no higher self. And I think I was a little bit disappointed and was a little bit scared at the same time. Is there really no higher self? No, no. See, that's what kept this character, in the trapped in that religiousness and that spirituality, is because there was this firm belief that there was a source or a higher self, and when it encountered this communication, it was almost very how do you say it? It was a very scary. It was just something that was very um I was resistant at first because it meant letting go of that fundamental, what seemingly seemed like a fundamental belief system of a source or a higher self or a soul that was really maintained all throughout in the apparent childhood, seemingly like a conditioning, was challenged, and um it was very much, there was so much resistance to it. There was so much resistance to it, but at the same time there was also kind of like, when it's like when you are suspecting that there's no Santa Claus, but you really want to believe in Santa Claus, and then you maintain, being good, and but you're looking for that reward because you've been a good boy. And so you, although it's transparently that you see that there's really no Santa Claus, but you want to maintain it, um because you think that you've done everything right. And at the same time, there was this resonance that there is no self or higher self or source or anything like that. It is just all ideas. It kept on resisting it. There was this huge resistance in what seems to be quite obvious. Um, and what was obvious is that what is not a belief system. What is it appears in everything, but it's not, cannot be pinpointed. It cannot be located as something. There's no arrival. It's like chasing infinity, and infinity is everywhere. It's in everything. So when yeah, so going back into that belief system, when it kept on getting challenged and challenged, there was a click of like, wait a second, this is just a belief system that just keeps on getting recycled over and over and over again, and it maintains this hope. So the hope was blocking the unconditional freedom as it is, because the hope was firmly held onto with faith, the faith in something higher, a faith in something inner or outer or whatever, something that's going to save this poor character that's suffering. So when all of that got yanked out, the higher self, the soul, the source, and I know this is probably grating for someone there and others listening to this, there was just this relaxation. So it's kind of funny because I was just with my mom earlier, and she, she has her rosary, she has her candles. I see no difference with, with people in spirituality, with their faith and belief system. And there's nothing wrong about that whatsoever. Nothing wrong whatsoever. It's just seemingly, it's just another mask of a pretense of trying to um seemingly not see what is. um it's dualistic, basically, is what's being expressed here. What about mistrusting big pharma, eating animals? Are these aspects of the illusion simply a question of A, the character, B, intuition, C, whatever apparently happens because no one is doing it and there's nothing happening? Seemingly what appears, even, mistrusting big pharma is what is, or trusting big pharma is also what is. Eating animals is what is, and not eating animals is also what is. It's going to appear as whatever it is. So there's nothing wrong or right. There seems to be a relaxing of what's wrong or right, but if the character chooses, for example, intuitively not to trust big pharma, then that's what's also happening. But seemingly what seems to get distangled or entangled is this firm, conspiracy belief systems. There's no more kind of like, or even if that seems to happen, that's what is as well. That's what seems to be happening as well. When I used to be a seeker, when I used to be a spiritual teacher, there was a cause and effect kind of thing mentality for me. If I do this, if I only eat this, will I get more enlightened? So there was an agenda and everything that was done. And there was a pretension that I was a higher being by not doing that. So when it was seen that it's all a facade, there was a relaxedness in everything. So whatever it is what is. Whatever seems to appear is allowed. Because no one is allowing it. But there seems to be a relax now. Like I used to get caught in the rabbit hole of, of belief systems, of conspiracy theory, of like channelers and all that kind of stuff. Emerson, could you talk about the illusion of choice? As soon as words are learned and as seeming I believe to be existing, there seems to be endless choices. Could you share about seeing choices arise, choices from no one making them? Really simple, right? Really simple. So there's this illusion of time. So there's an illusion of a choice maker, someone making a choice. When it's seen that there is really no time, so choice doesn't really happen. Everything is seemingly happening automatically, and there's really no linear time that's appearing. Let's even kind of like flip-flop that and say that when it's seen that there's no self or there's no one doing anything, then doing just happens. Choice just happens. Simply the the happening is illusory. So anything that seems to be moving, choice making, decision making, happening, are all nothing happening. But in the apparent appearance of this, what seems to appear is that there is this belief that there is time, right? So belief is also an illusion. So the belief in their time, it thinks that it thought before of what's going to take. For example, it will say that, well, I was thinking earlier and I was going to choose coffee, not tea. So I choose coffee. But seemingly there's this time that is, again, like I think I used to do it this way, thinking that it's from here to there. So a choice of coffee is made, coffee is ordered at the counter. But when it's seen that time is an illusion and everything is happening all at once, so the choice of thinking that it's going to take coffee and then coffee is made is happening at the same time, all at once, instantaneous, spontaneously. So choice and the action is happening at the same time. And even to really kind of like go a little bit further, it's not even happening at all because there's no one doing the choice and there's no one making a, there's no time. And let's take it further. Let's put it in a dream, in a nighttime dream. For example, someone ordered coffee in nighttime dream and picks up coffee. When there's awakeness, that choice that apparently happened in a dream did not happen at all because it was just a dream. So what's being expressed here, the time is a dream. The self is a dream. Choice is a dream. Everything is a dream. So everything that happens in a dream is a dream, meaning it's not real, but it feels real. And if you want to add to that, Karen, go ahead. Thank you. You know how psychology pays a lot of attention to human behavior in order to manipulate it. Does that still apply? No longer, because psychology is also seen as happening in the dream. So it's just an analyzing of the dream within the dream, which is still going to be a dream. But apparently, what I'm saying, there's still, it's just what's happening. Human behavior happens in a dream. Psychology happens in a dream. Analyzing, manipulation happens in a dream, but it's all a dream. So nothing's really happening in the dream, but it feels absolutely real. It's kind of like the dream at night is never questioned. And then when it's seen that it didn't really happen at all, it's not even questioned. It's kind of like, oh, that didn't really happen. It just becomes something that is held on to, a contraction, and then released. Again, going back with the open and close, kind of like what I talked about in the first meeting, that there's this illusion of open, close, this or that, empty, fullness, nothing, everything. For example, McDonald's may have ways to make me eat all of their dishes. That's the compulsion stop. Apparently, there's no more kind of like again, this is just a story again, right? But seemingly here, there's no more engagement or seriousness in what's happening. So it's not easily there's just this easiness, this openness. And it doesn't have that stickiness. I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't have this so everything that is seen is not it's not easily grab, there's no more trying to grab it. For example, someone was talking to me about diets. There's not much care about diet anymore, but there's healthy eating happening as well, and there's also gluttonous eating as well. Sometimes it goes to a restaurant and eats a lot of food. Sometimes it eats a lot of healthy food. So there's much more attachment to that one, right? So sometimes it might go to McDonald's, and sometimes it might just go to some vegan places. It's just what is. Or if it's the person, the character just likes to eat like vegan food, then that's what is always. It's always just whatever it is. Yeah, so the subconscious stuff is just another kind of like psychology stuff. When I used to listen to this communication, I used to listen to it while I was sleeping in hopes that I would get it subconsciously. So it's just another illusion. There's no subconscious. In the dream, it feels, again, everything feels real. Every suggestion, you know what I'm saying, that there's subconscious is also what's happening. But when it's seen that there is no body, that there's no brain, there's no universe, there's no reality, there's no self, because the self holds all of these ideas. So the self holds the idea about, what psychology is, what subconscious is, all the belief system, what reality is, what gravity is. So when that is collapsed or seemingly collapsed because it was not there in the first place, everything feels like a nighttime dream and you just woke up from it. You're like, oh, none of it is real. And then the dream continues. So everything that was previously believed or held on to, like channeling, subconscious, psychology, Jungian, everything. I was about to say Alfred Hitchcock. What I meant was everything that was formerly known becomes an unknowing. I think Tej and I were talking about that there was a knowing and there was a hoarding of all of this knowledge. So this one is more of a draining down the drain of all of the knowledge. Not that it's because it's irrelevant or relevant. It's just seeing that there's no such thing as relevant or irrelevant. There's just an easiness. It's like when it's seen that nothing can be held to anyways, when everything seems to Hitchcock. Yes. I love Alfred Hitchcock movies. But there's just this no more trying to hoard anything. This character was such a hoarder. It was a hoarder of spiritual quotes, knowledge of anything. So everything is just seen as a disappearance, seemingly, that nothing matters anymore. An easeness, a relaxedness, a so whatness. Because it's a dream. So since there's no time, but when it's seen over and over again, that what seems to appear also disappears. And this is seen, you know what, if you notice it, everything that you hold on to today, the moment that you go to sleep tonight, everything is released. Nothing is held on to. The next morning, again, it starts all over again, but there's no morning and night. So the dream is happening. So it's a dream within a dream. But seemingly the dream resets all the time, meaning that the dream is not really happening. The reality, the dream of reality, there's no such thing as reality. So it just keeps on appearing in and out, meaning it's all deep sleep. It's all nothing. Kathy. Oh. Hi, Emerson. How about numerology, astrology? Is that all gone too? Yeah, I used to wait for numbers. Yeah, it's all gone. So all belief system. It's like and this is just a story too, because no one really grows up and there's really no one. It's like a growing up with all of the fairy tales, the fairy tale of numbers, the fairy tale of synchronicities, all of the magical thinking, all the superstition is cleared up. Yeah.
Raise my hand.
Hi, Kathy.
I can't find anything on the bottom. All this stuff keeps coming up. Do I want to make a video? What are my settings? This never happened. I can't even make a chat because this box comes up and
Are you on an iPad? Is that an
No.
iPad that you're using? Phone?
It's a phone, Android.
Android, okay. All right.
So anyway, no, I was thinking about like, I don't even remember what it was, but, and I can't remember the man's name now. I could go in the attic and look for the CDs. I bought like hundreds of his CDs. I think it was him and his wife now. And they used to, you had to play it when you went to sleep.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
a certain brainwave.
Is it Edward Gacy? Is that the one?
Edgar Casey?
Yeah,
No,
Edgar Casey.
no,
No,
no.
no. Okay, that's
He
another
has
one
all
that I
the-
used to read. Yeah,
some of his stuff too. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was all that astral projection stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you know, when you're viewing the past, you know, this was like just whatever you want to open up your whatever you want to another level. So you would go on a diet. I don't know what he was doing, and they would take your brain to the theta level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember those kind of like I'm not sure which one, but I've done those as well. You know, the subconscious sleeping subliminal messaging kind of thing
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you know, it's supposed to take you to a deeper level of consciousness, so to speak, where you can
yeah.
speak to your soul directly. That kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah,
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 you can change things up at that level.
yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what? And you know, when they're seeking, it's just there's a lot of gullibility, right? So I did that for quite a while. Or even when I was listening to this radical communication, I would I would listen to you know, Jim or Tony while sleeping. It's it's so silly now, right? It's so silly now. It's hilarious now.
You bet. The best
Yeah.
was, and you know, so many different teachers. It was funny. It was fun. You have to laugh about it now. It's kind of fun. I never really got attached. Like, you know, my sister got attached to this female guru, and my girlfriend got attached to another guru upstate. And then, you know, there was one that I kind of liked a lot, but it was like not real attachment. And well, there was one place that I liked. It was in the Bahamas.
Mm,
I can't remember the guru's name now.
there's so many out there. There's so many.
Yeah, but you know, see, I wasn't even attached to him. I just went because it was the Bahamas, you know, and it was like, so you know, had to peel a few carrots or something, and then the whole
Oh
day,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
on the beach or on the platform doing yoga. It was so cool. It was really nice. So, you know, I was into that, you know, with Vishwanand. I can't remember his name, but anyway, you know, so it was dabble, this, that, and the other thing. To get no place.
Oh yeah.
So here. There's no one here, so there's nothing.
Totally. It's so funny because a lot of people that listens to this have done multiple you know, journeys, so to speak, right? Has been with many gurus. I do a lot of one-on-ones with people that, okay, I'm tired of seeking. This is, you know, this is kind of like I'm done. Um and it's just, but it's so funny because there seems to be kind of like almost like a syndrome of seeking where when what's being presented is the exit, it keeps on turning around and saying, well, I don't want to exit yet. It's kind of like I was talking to someone yesterday and today about, you know, losing the self and everything. What was said yesterday was like, it's like, you know what, what this person said, it's like, I was in a jail, and then you're like, well, the door is always open, and then you keep on looking for the door, although there was no door. It doesn't want to get out. It
Yeah.
it maintains that there is something to figure out, you know, or something, and it just sits in that seeking place. Although it's being kind of like, even when it's getting called out, it's even when you know, when the emptiness is wearing a mask called Kathy, and Kathy keeps on saying, well, I don't get it.
You know, I always make an excuse anyway.
Yeah.
I-
Yes.
So it's like a big old cop out all the time.
When I was when I started listening to this communication, I was not fully in it yet. You know what I'm saying? I kept on. I felt like I was cheating with all of the you know, because I kept on going there. I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe. And then one day I'm like, you know what? Screw it. You know what? This resonates with me the most. You know what I'm saying? It's really scary as hell, meaning that all my progress is not relevant. There's nothing that I did. I didn't help anyone. And it's basically kind of like admitting that it's kind of like, you know, you're pretending that you have a giant Bitcoin account, but deep inside you know that there's nothing there. You're just deluding yourself that, you know. Like, and then someone saying that you don't have a Bitcoin account. I'm like, well, yeah, I just don't remember the password. I'll remember it one day. I'm really a billionaire. You just don't know it.
That would probably happen. That would probably happen. You forget the password. You'd spend the rest of your time trying to figure out the password.
So I'm like, Tony, what's the password? He goes, there's no password. Like, I just need a password. I just need a password to my Bitcoin wallet so I can be a billionaire. Come on. What do you mean there's no password? He goes, there's not only no password, but there's no Bitcoin wallet. I'm like, what? But I invested in it for 10 years. I had to clean washrooms for a whole 90 days, you know. Surely there's must be something in it. The guru told me that just check your Bitcoin wallet. It's there. So it's like, you know, it's like when you get scammed, you don't want to admit it because you don't want to look ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when you're like, oh yeah, you know what, you hide it a little bit. You're like, you know. Especially when you were a part of that as well. You know, you're like, you were in the pyramid as well. You're like my brother telling me that, did you know that you were kind of like a cult leader? I'm like, wow. Well, I really didn't know at that time, you know. I'm like, but mine was not really. I'm like, well, people looked at you lovingly and they would do anything for you. I'm like, I felt guilty after a while, and I told them that, you know, this is a whole sham and everything. Yeah.
It's still like that.
It's still like that?
Yeah.
For who?
Yeah, I mean, everybody admires and loves you.
Oh, no.
That is, come on.
Oh, no. All
Come
right.
on.
I'm
You know
going to
that.
shut down my YouTube website now. I'm just joking.
What's that?
No, it's just there's no attachment whatsoever to that anymore. Before that was there was someone that wrote earlier, please don't. Remember someone can like wrote yesterday,
Yes.
they're like, please don't take up your YouTube account.
Yeah, I really like that. I did like that. Yeah.
It was just
That
I
was
was just trying to be funny.
that was really sincere.
Yeah.
That was real sincerity. That
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
Love that. Whoever wrote that, whoever said that one.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me their name.
No. Usually when people write to me in direct message, I usually don't say, and sometimes I forget. Sorry for sometimes I divulge the name. Sorry.
No, but I just love that. That was like
That
one
was
of
very
the,
sweet.
that was like, yeah, that just like really hit hard. I
Yeah.
love that message. Whoever wrote that, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Thanks, Emerson. Thanks.
Isn't it crazy, Emerson, that the seeking doesn't stop, even though, you know, the message resonates, but still that seeking, because even attending these weekend retreats is a form of seeking.
Oh yeah,
still.
yeah. It is. It's still that. It again. You know what? When there's a retirement that's being offered, the seeking energy still likes to go to work, But seemingly, you know, what I'm saying you know what is seen in this kind of meetings. It's like the end of the last house basically, right? Because when I used to seek other you know, modalities or any kind of like, you know, for example, when I was in the awareness, I was still in that magical thinking. So what I would do is I would seek like 20 different things, like channeling, Course in Miracles, awareness, Nisargadatta, Ramesh, all of that kind of stuff. And I would have, so when this kind of like hit, I was like, I can't listen to the other things anymore.
Yep. I mean, for me also, I
So
mean,
to
it's
me,
very clear.
yeah,
Can't go back to that.
you can't go back to that. So that's
But
what was kind of like,
we are
oh,
now seeking this sort of,
yeah, yeah. And that's just another, and that's why, like I usually say, when this kind of like, it's like hitting the wall over and over and over again. There's nothing being given. There's no carrot being dangled here, right? So there's this sincerity. There's this, if there's something that I could have given, I would have given it already. But since there's no one to give it to, and no one is giving it to anyone, it's just this. So it's
and
almost gonna
actually
like,
that's good.
yeah,
That's really good. That's freeing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. Or someone basically said to me that they like attending these meetings, although they're seeking. The seeking is empty now.
Yes. I
The
can see the difference
Yeah.
also between that desperate seeking
Yeah,
and just attending these meetings. I could be doing anything else. I've been taking phone calls and stuff like that.
yeah,
And there's, it's just,
yeah. It's relaxed.
yeah, right. There is a difference. Yeah.
There's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference because at the end of it, at the end of my seeking, right? Although in the beginning I was like, I was like listening to that. This was my full-time job. I was listening to 8 hours, and writing in my books. And then when it finally sank in that, there's just so many times that you can hear that there's nothing to get until it clicks and you're like, well, if there's nothing to get, but I still love hearing this. So I would just be doing, housework or biking or, DJing sometimes. And then all of a sudden one day was just, it was just almost because there's nothing it's not feeding the seeker. So this,
Mhm.
and this is just a story as well. So the seeker usually starves or gets exhausted, right? And that's
Yep.
what usually happens. Kind of like what I was saying before, this kind of speaking is not sustainable because you usually lose a lot of audience.
Yeah.
It doesn't kind of like, hey Ted, you have to attend the next meeting. And you
Yeah.
there's none of that, right? Before,
Yeah.
when I was in the spirituality, I kept on feeding, the seekers so that they would stay. So there was really no
Yeah.
liberation. So there's this codependency. There's no
Yeah.
kind of like,
Mhm.
and the and there's no more attachments. There's no student teacher relationship. So there's no
Exactly.
there's no
And that's the difference.
codependency. That's the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
codependency.
Even for me, I can feel that because when I was with these teachers or gurus or whatever, there was that codependency and that, higher, lower kind of thing
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
and then this is just, well, it's just Emerson.
Yeah.
You can say anything you want.
Yeah. It
That's
is.
funny. Yeah.
It is. And there's no heaviness to it.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
no heaviness to it. There's no specialness, and it's self-deprecating because there's no self.
Yeah. And
It's
that's
not,
actually
there's no
beautiful.
seriousness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to kind of like, you know this, and going to darshans and waiting for your transmission and hoping that you would get it. And then hoping that, at the same time, you're like, looking for something better. There was always looking for a
Yeah.
better teacher,
Yep.
with the, some people that are seeking for that liberation and everything. And maybe, this is not the teacher. Maybe I should go to
Yeah.
this teacher.
Mm.
Here what's being expressed, that there are no teachers that will help you. There's just this bluntness because there's no you to help. So this is basically like almost like a confessions, like a whistle blowing that there's nothing to get. And that's the liberation.
Yeah, and there's something special about this message. I still remember when going through these other gurus and teachers, the times were different. It was like the in thing to do at that time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Now it's like, come on, that's crazy.
It is. It's just it's, and this is just a story. For me, it felt very juvenile when I was doing that.
Yeah,
It felt
is.
very, very like
Yeah.
it's kind of like when I outgrew that, right? When I outgrew that, because before No, yeah, there's so many things, so many things. It was just jumping in and out of whatever. One day it was transcendental meditation. Next day it was, there's this guru, guru hunting. And then one time it's the Kriyas, then it's
Yeah. Mhm.
Kundalini. It was just this buffet, right? And
Yep.
I was always hungry for something. And
Yeah.
then when when I got into this radical non-duality, I'm like, I'm hungry, but they were like, well, there's nothing that will feed you here.
Yeah, and also the message is such that if it gets you, I mean, I can say for myself, if it gets you, and and you can't explain why, then automatically that stuff kind of drops away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also, you know what, and there's also going to be a lot of people that listens to this first, but still wants the fantasy. So usually they leave and they usually come back when the fantasy is exposed as a sham.
Yeah.
there was there was this person that wrote me, basically goes, I couldn't stand you, Emerson, so I went back into the awareness thing. And then when I went to the awareness thing, goes, the reason that I couldn't stand him is because it was ringing true for me. What was being said was
That's
triggering. It was like, oh shoot, oh shoot, it's something that is resonating, but the resonance was not pleasant, I guess, because it was something that was held on to, kind of like what I was saying. Everything, it was this admission that everything that I held on to was BS, right? So I was pretending that I had this Bitcoin wallet or this big portfolio of financial gains, but I was deluding myself. I was deluded with all of that financial gain. So when I kept on kind of like going back, I would listen to Tony a bit, and Jim, and I would like slam my computer. I'm like, and then go back. And it's funny because people tell me the same thing now. They're like, we couldn't listen to you, and we hated you and everything. It's because it's what is being expressed here is so it's just brutal for a seeker.
Mm.
If
Yeah,
you're
but there's
looking,
a
if you're
beauty.
looking, there's a
Yeah.
beauty. But if you're looking for the happily ever after enlightenment kind of thing, this is really brutal when it said, well, there's no such thing.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's also beauty in it when there's no such thing. Then there's this, okay, well, if there's no such thing, then this is already it. If there's no duality, then this is already enlightenment. Without anyone being enlightened, everything is enlightened. That's
Yep.
what I was seeing. I was like, what? That's why it's beautiful too. No one gets enlightened, but everything is enlightened.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's brutal, devastating for that frame of mind of seeking.
Yes.
Yeah, it is totally devastating. I mean,
Yeah.
I have had bouts of crying over that,
Oh,
Yeah.
me too. Me too.
Yeah.
It's just so funny now. It's just so funny
Yeah.
now. I just talked to my friend that witnessed me kind of like on the ground saying, "Where are the cockroaches?" And then he said, "Well, what happened to the cockroaches, Emerson?" I'm like,
That one is funny, actually.
it's the Byron Katie
Yeah, I
story,
know.
right?
Yeah.
Of being in a halfway house, and he goes, "You were such a mess." I'm like, I was because he said you would be watching, you would be seeking, and when nothing happened, I would go into drinking because I was so frustrated, right? Because I'll be listening to all of this stuff. And he goes, and you would be drinking, and then the next day you would be meditating. Because this guy's mad. And then the
Mhm.
cycle over and over again, right? Because it was just such suffering, such suffering for what already is. Because I kept on
Yeah.
looking for, waiting for something. That's what it is. The waiting
Yeah.
for something when it's already this. The waiting for a train when you're already in it. But the train is moving, so it doesn't have a stopover. But you're thinking that you're waiting for the train to stop for you and you keep on missing it, but not noticing that you're inside the train already and that Freedom Express is moving.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a kind of a gap or dissatisfaction that drives that
Oh, yeah.
seeking. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
in there as if I'm not complete, but I'm going to get this. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Satisfaction.
the worst thing that can happen is if someone thinks that they got enlightened. That's the ultimate
Oh, yeah.
betrayal. And then I feel bad, saying in the story anyway, I feel bad anyone that seems to think that they got enlightened and they're, announcing it, and there's nothing wrong or right about that. But what is seen is that just, when there's humility, and that's what I like about this communication is there's so much humility in it that even if people apparently drop, there's honesty, that there is this seeming kind of like sometimes it's a wow honeymoon period, and then sometimes
Mm.
it's kind of like I think I lost it, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that's also it, and then all of a sudden it clicks again. You're like, okay, so there's just this normalcy. There's no expectancy of something that will happen next because it's always this, no matter how this appears,
Mm.
because this is ever changing stillness. It's a stillness that never is still, which is unthinkable. Saying it's a
Yeah.
stillness that is constantly moving. It's a destination that is always running.
Yeah, and there's something freeing about it. So, even humbleness can come or anything else can come and it just comes, but there is no kind of heaviness or attachment to it.
No, there's no
Yeah.
attachment to it. There's no attachment to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because when there was this loss of it, and then you would think that someone apparently got it back, but what's seen was, that was seen as a dream. You would think that you would imagine of like telling everyone, but there was just this silence here. I'm like, well, you know what? Since there's no one here, who cares? There's just this, who cares, right? There's just this clarity here that there's nothing happening. So there's no
Yeah. There's
um
no,
what do you call that, grand staging? But there's the name for it. There's no grand kind of like entrance. Here I
yeah.
am. I'm enlightened now.
Mhm.
There's
Well,
none of
even
that.
the, reverse can be true. Like in my case, I mean, some of the stuff that I would think is bad or is repressed and all that, but these days just finds expression and
Yeah.
it's fine because there is no that big judgment about it. It just
Yeah.
free flowing out of the system,
It is. It is. It is. It's just whatever it is, right? So it's
Yeah.
just this. And when I talk about humility, what I really mean is that there's just this ordinariness of
Yeah.
this. There's just this yeah, it is what it is. But there's no one that's humble. It's just humility. There's no
Yeah.
one that is enlightened because there's no one. There's just this aliveness. So it sees things as it is, not what should be. There's no next because enlightenment is the next.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
It's,
duality if you really look at it, right? Because
yeah.
who's going to attain it? And then when it means not to, so enlightenment does not have anything to do with non-duality if you look at it.
Yes, the oxymoron.
Yeah. Because who is going to get enlightened when there's already not
Exactly.
to? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tej.
Thank you.
Hey, Susie, are you feeling okay? Oh, is it a fever?
Oh, no, I got no fever. I'm just really super fatigued.
Okay, okay. Because everyone's getting
Yeah,
sick here again. My brother had the flu and COVID, and everyone's sick again. So that's what I was thinking. But
yeah, I got COVID.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Good,
It's
good.
great to, I mean, I got to say, like, while I'm sick, it's just great to lie here and listen
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
So
I saw
it's
the
pretty
couch
cool.
yesterday. I was like, Susie's there.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Hi, Emerson. Can you make a playlist of all of the songs that you listen to on your walk and share it with us? Yeah, sure. Why not? It's chaotic though. Kathy might not like it because it has punk. It has everything in it. Yeah. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. I'll share it. I don't have Spotify anymore, but I have Apple Music. I don't know if you guys use Apple Music, but I'll share it in one of the newsletters. Yeah. I used Ritalin to control my appetite until I just took way too much. Then I used Eckhart Tolle to control all that. Now to see that no one is doing any of it, I'm scared in a sense gluttony and vanity appear and have conflicts. During the Kundalini awakening, the aliveness took care of that seeking. Um, there is nothing really that is in control of anything. There is no, there's this fear, usually that when kind of like what the person that I was speaking to yesterday, when there was this feeling that now that there's no self, then is it just going to be chaos? Is it going to go on a, going to rob banks and everything? What is just that there's just this character as it is, right? When there is this liberation, what seems to happen when it's seen that there's no one doing anything, there seems to be an absence of neurosis. So the absence of neurosis is basically the absence of trying to control things. So for example, when there is this seeking energy, the control freak, the one that thinks is driving the show, the one that thinks it's doing the apparent is basically the control freak of everything. After the apparent awakening, the aliveness, there's no one that awakens. Aliveness is just as it is. So aliveness, what seems to appear is this, when it's seen that everything is just happening all on its own, there seems to be a dwindling or a disappearance of trying to control things, because if the car is driving by itself, why try to put on the brake or control anything? So there seems to be an aliveness that just appears for no one. But if you want to talk to me about that further, I'm not going to mention your name. You can message me. We can talk about that. It's not something to be scared of, because what's the scared or the fear about this apparent undoing is just another illusion.
Sakes.
Kathy.
Well,
Hey.
trying to control is this too. So you're going to still do it.
Yeah, it is too. But basically what the person's asking, if, after the awakening, usually when is there still going to be, is it going to be out of control, so to speak? Is it going to come back? Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm controlling a lot of stuff here.
It's always out of control because there's no one controlling the show.
No. I'm not out of control. I'm saying I'm very much controlling everything.
Oh, okay.
So
That's also what's happening.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong or right about that.
Yeah.
It's also what is, trying to control what is.
Somebody has to do it.
Someone has
Do it.
someone's got to do it. Thank you for volunteering.
I'll take it all on once I get my enlightenment.
It's in the mail.
I hope you sent it first class so it gets here fast.
Return to sender, it said. it was rejected, so it came back. I don't know.
Why do you have to do that? That's not nice. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, what's that?
Anne, hello. Hi, Anne.
Oh, sorry, I'm say.
No
I
worries.
don't know if you can hear.
No worries at all. Hi, Emerson. I've been listening to you for a few months now. What seemed to happen is after a while, I stopped drinking and taking substances. Now I'm afraid that if I stop listening to you, that I'll start taking them again. Can you say something about that? Well, you know what? If you do it 20, I'm just joking. There's no one doing any of this, right? It's just basically what's being expressed here, that there's always peace no matter what. This is not a medicine, or this is not kind of a anything at all. Oh, sorry. Let me. Oh, and thank you also for doing this. Oh, no problem. Yeah, this is nothing at all. This is nothing at all. This is not a prescription or anything like that. So the stopping drinking happened, the stopping of the substances happened. But you know what? This is not a replacement of any kind of like therapy or something like that. So if seeking help outside of this also happened, that's also what is. This is not about a dependence about this communication. But again, if you want to talk to me about that in a just message me. We can talk on WhatsApp. But yeah. Well, we're going to take a couple of hours of break. Thank you so much, everyone. That was a fun one.